unravelled, we don't know how, and led to this tragedy.
Rupert Wingfield-Hayes, thank you very much. Well, let's discuss this more with aviation expert Geoffrey Thomas. Mr. Thomas, thank you for joining us on BBC News. As we said with Rupert, there are a lot of questions. What do you think went wrong?
Well, this is one of the most perplexing crashes I think I have ever seen, because nothing about this crash makes any sense. Certainly we know there was a bird strike of some kind. Whether it was a single bird, multiple birds, we don't know. But then the air traffic control data, called the ADS-B, this is the data that the aircraft transmits about its altitude, speed, location. This is how air traffic control track aircraft. That cut out. As soon as the Mayday was issued, that data cut out, which indicates an electrical fault of some kind. But then the plane was on approach to land on 01. This airport has a single runway, 01 from the south, 19 from the north. It was on approach to land. Now, having had this bird strike, for some reason, they decide to go and do another approach from the other end, runway 19. And when they do make that approach, the wheels are up, the flaps are not set correctly, and it lands halfway to 2/3 down the runway and careers into a localizer structure and explodes. Now, you know, if there was electrical problems or hydraulic problems, there are workarounds for the undercarriage. It can be gravity dropped. It's just beside the co-pilot. You just reach down and open a little hatch and pull some levers, and you can gravity drop the undercarriage. The same with the flaps. There are ways of deploying those to a certain extent. So it just doesn't make any sense, and I think that we're going to have to wait until we get the cockpit voice recording details before we can really get a handle on what on earth went on that aeroplane.
And Mr. Thomas, the one thing that surprised me was there was a brick wall at the end of a runway. How unusual is that around the world?
Well, yes, there's been a lot of discussion about that, and yes, you're right. There is a brick wall. It's actually technically 1,000 feet from, or 300 meters from the end of the actual markings on the runway, which denote the end of the runway. Now, this particular runway at that particular end does continue with a tarmac surface, then goes into grass. So there's been some confusion as to the exact distance. Now, when I mentioned the 1,000 feet and the 300 meters, that, according to the International Civil Aviation Organization, as I understand it, is sufficient. Now, you know, if the aircraft had landed at the right spot at the other end of the runway, then it would have pulled up in time. There's no question it would have pulled up in time. The fact that it landed 2/3 the way down or half the way down the runway, there wasn't sufficient distance for it to stop.
Okay.
And by the way, beyond that wall, you've got the localizer, which is a great big steel structure. Then you've got a road and a ditch. So the aircraft, if it didn't hit the brick wall, was going to hit the localizer, and then it was going to hit a ditch and a road.
Okay,
so
we're going to have to leave it there, Mr. Thomas. But thank you very much for your insight. Appreciate your time.
Sure.